welcome to My Worst Date. I'm Cassie.
I'm Keegan.
I'm Christina. And today we are joined by the best-selling author of Radical Confidence.
No big deal.
Host of Women of Impact.
No big deal.
Co-founder of Quest Nutrition and president of Impact Theory. My friend, my homie, my boss, Lisa Bilyeu.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
No, I'm so excited. So basically, I've been working for you for about a year now, and relationship theory, binging it for forever. She gives the best relationship advice. And for our listeners, if you're ever dealing with a narcissist, you absolutely have to listen to Women of Impact, because you have so many guests on that really go into how you can spot a narcissist.
You know, this is great because we are notoriously not an advice podcast.
Yes.
No.
So
Yeah.
now we are giving some alternatives,
Yes.
some places to go, some resources that you can check out. Because we are not experts.
No, our only purpose is to remind people they're not alone. You're not the only one with a bad date. Let us tell you about all these wild things that happen. But yeah, we'll leave the advice to you.
I actually feel like I'm a narcissist expert now. I've interviewed so many people, and even when someone will say oh, they're such a narcissist, I'm like, well, technically they're not. They're just toxic, and there's a very big difference.
Can you give us what's the difference between someone who's toxic and someone who's a narcissist? Do you think?
So a narcissist doesn't have real empathy. Well, no, actually, that's a psychopath. So there's a difference between psychopaths and narcissists as well.
Levels.
So, yeah, I know there's levels to this. So a narcissist, it comes from such bad childhood wounds, and usually it's when they're so young, their brain hasn't been able to evolve. And so a narcissist will go after, quote unquote, someone that has actually tremendous value but isn't threatening to them. So imagine they lack something, they lack a confidence or they lack something. They may not show it. So you may be like, oh my God, this person's so charismatic.
Got
and
it
they seem
together.
like they've got everything. Yeah. But actually they've got a serious insecurity. And so they try to find people to fill that insecurity, to make them feel better about themselves. And what they'll do is once that person that maybe they're with on a date or something like that, if they start to level up, if they start to be too impressive, that's when now you trigger a narcissist, and that's where you see the other side of them. So
You're not better than me.
Yeah. Well, they won't even say that outright. They'll actually use words to manipulate you and to gaslight you into
tear you
believing.
down.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's just
I feel like I've met some. I feel like I've met a few.
I'm like, who am I thinking of? Exactly. Well, so the other thing, I don't know if you guys know, but Lisa has been married for 21 years to her partner, Tom Bilyeu. And so when she asked about the show originally, I'm like, girl, you've been married forever. When was the last time you were dating? Do you have bad dates
last week?
I'm like, I don't know.
Oh no.
But yeah, so I mean, I would love to hear how you guys met. 21 years is an incredible thing to celebrate.
I'm on your tail.
Yeah, she's right behind you.
18 years.
Nice.
Yeah,
Right on your
yeah,
tail.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm always down to hear did you know from the jump this is it for me, or was it a slow, gradual thing?
Yeah, so I love this question because when I was thinking about what is my worst date, it started off being my worst date with my husband.
Oh, wow. Perfect.
So because I went in with so many preconceived notions of what I wanted, what I'd known. And so coming from North London, you very much had the way that the guys would show up was they had really nice cars, they had nice rims, they took you to most expensive restaurants, and then they just treat you like crap. But they were definitely they would woo you. Yeah. Absolutely. And I really thought at that age, because I was 21, so I really thought at that age, this is what I expect when someone comes to pick me up. And they've got so much cologne, they've had they're over the top. That's what I was used to.
It's a very early David Beckham vibe. I just finished watching that documentary, and it was just as soon as money came in, he spent it. So he owned $1 billion, really nice cars, and everything's Gucci or Versace or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And being brought up Greek Orthodox, a big part of my upbringing was, you find someone that has resources that can provide for you. So that, I think, really did intersect with the belief that I had of what a husband or a partner should be. And then the proof was in the pudding when they would take you to lovely restaurants and have these really expensive cars. And so if I was on a dating app then, I wouldn't have dated my husband because he knocks on the door. I've spent 2 hours getting ready, right? Like I've chosen the best outfit. I've tried on 8 different things. And he opens the door, or I open the door, sorry, and he's in his work clothes. And so he hasn't even gone home to shower. He's in like this old t-shirt that he used to wear all the freaking time. And so I was like, wow, like that's how special. Like,
yeah. Okay.
So then he walks me to his car and he's got this really old, beefy old man's Buick. And so like the car door wasn't even really working. No. The back seat looked like almost like his own personal storage unit.
Oh no. Everybody knows that person.
And Cassie, you are triggered because Cassie keeps her car so
pristine.
clean.
It really is. It's like, did you just get this car? She's like, no, I've had it for like 5-6 years.
It smells brand new.
Yeah.
Like your car always smells new.
Oh my God, I feel very like...
I don't need it.
So you would have been just as horrified as I was then.
I would have absolutely been like, I don't know if I can... like my tight is my energy.
Yeah.
Sitting in that. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, this guy hasn't made an effort. Like his car's kind of lame. Like it's really filthy. But then he opened the car door for me.
Oh my God, this is me and Chris.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah.
This is Chris had an old beat up Buick, blue, I think. Crap in the back seat. Open the door for me.
And it was the first date I'd ever been on where a guy had opened any door for me.
Wow. Really?
And I dated a guy before that for almost 4 years, not once.
Wow.
So I was brought up not really thinking about chivalry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so he did this and I was like, that was interesting.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he was like, well, are you hungry? Like, let's go out to eat. So I was like, oh, yeah, okay, great. We pull up at a strip mall. A Chinese restaurant with a B rating.
Well, that's
Never
how you know it's
a
good.
B rating.
That's how you know it's good. Where are you at? What city are you in?
In LA.
In Los Angeles?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. That food is going to slap hard. A B rating Chinese restaurant? It's going to be delicious.
Wow.
Yeah. And the funny, so I was like, what the hell is this hole? Like, I'm used to like, the tablecloths. And this had like a rip in the seat. I mean, it was just...
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah, it was just going, but I was being from England.
Yeah.
I'm just like, am I going to get food poisoning?
Yeah.
Right? I gotta be honest, same. That's my first thought. You're like, it's gonna slap. I'm like, slap me later when I'm in the bathroom because like, I don't know.
If you have a sensitive tummy, enter at your own risk, but it's going to taste good going down.
Yeah, but you do not want to go to the bathroom in a B restaurant. Let me just tell you.
You sure
No.
don't.
Absolutely
That's true.
not.
Because you had to walk through the closet.
Yeah.
To then get to the toilet, that is one of those where the lock doesn't really work.
Not quite.
And you're looking out for like roaches, and you're like, "Am I going to pee?" And
there are
roach
those
is going
like
to jump
urinal
up at
cakes
me?
like on the floor.
Oh yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, what is? It smells weirdly of like air freshener and piss.
It is
like
a really
man.
special
I feel like we know this place.
place in your head that you go to when you are dressed to the nines.
Yep.
In a physical space that you just described. It's like something is like, it just doesn't line up.
Right.
Things
and
aren't
that's
mapping.
the thing. Because there's nothing necessarily wrong with any of this.
No.
I just want to be aware that that's what's happening. I don't want to
I don't want
show
to take
up.
2 hours to get ready.
I do
and
not
then...
want to take 2 hours to get ready to be like dressed up like we are going to a nice sit down restaurant and then have this happen. Like,
Right.
because that is when it becomes like there was a disconnect.
Yes.
In communication.
It was a shock to my system. And that was the thing, to your point, like I didn't expect it. And then the food comes, it's like, wow, this is the best orange chicken I've ever eaten.
Oh, there you go.
That's right.
There you go.
Right.
So I was just like, you got these sirens going off, like, what are you doing? Oh my God. And then we just sat down to eat. And he was just fascinated with me. He was asking me questions where he seemed genuinely interested, not just to like ask the question, but he seemed genuinely interested. And he was raving about how much he loved the food. And to your point, he was like, this is the best Chinese restaurant I've ever been to.
Yeah.
So he's like, when I go to, I'm going to take a girl out on a date, he didn't think about how it would appear.
Aesthetically.
Right.
And to be honest, it was so refreshing. And I didn't realize it until I was there, until I realized this guy didn't care about showing off. All he cared about is going and having a nice meal and having a great discussion.
Wow.
And so even in the conversations that we were talking about, I was very much used to the guy that was just trying to show off.
Yeah.
And here Tom was like, he was asking me, so what? Oh, you're religious? Okay, that's so cool. Why do you believe in God? And like, I was like, I've never
been asked
that. I'm like 21 on a date. On a date.
21 years old. I don't know. That's how I was raised.
Yeah. Oh, my answer was because my dad told me to.
Yes, really.
I had no answer.
You don't at 21. That's just what it is. Yeah, for
But
sure.
he was it wasn't like he was trying to like,
Real.
some people do
Was
it
trying to catch you out.
Yeah, when people are like almost
Yes.
also judgmental.
Yeah.
He didn't do it in that way at all. And so I was
nice.
like, wow, I'm really interested in this guy that actually cares. Like there was
Yeah.
no like, oh, it's the weather and this is what, there was none of that. He just went deep. And then
Wow.
the other thing he said is like, oh, of course, yeah, I watch porn. Do you watch porn? And I was like, I can't believe how open this guy is.
Yeah,
about,
right?
Like,
coming in hot.
God and porn. It's like all on one day. Like what is happening?
He's like,
right
let's just
now?
get this shit out on Front
Well,
Street.
it's
How
just
do you feel about
very
porn?
authentic right away.
No, that's
right?
great.
It's just like, this is the car I drive. I'm not going to go like pretend like it's something else
Yeah.
because in the future, you're going to find all that stuff out anyway.
Yep.
So it's just like, here's who I am. I'm putting it on the table. If you don't like it, here's your opportunity to walk away right now. And we don't have to waste each other's time going on 10 dates. And then all of a sudden you find out that like, we're not actually compatible because I was just faking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's taking me to a fancy restaurant, but actually he hates fancy restaurants. And then to your point,
Yeah.
I realize it, yeah. I went to like, oh, we'll share a dish, we'll like it. And he goes, oh no, I don't share. And he goes,
That's
he goes,
also Cassie. Does not share.
But the great news is, he goes, but I'll get you your own dish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, but he said it with no embarrassment, no shame. It wasn't like dismissive. And so as I have all these list of expectations of all the different dates that I've been on in
Melting.
my life, and then there's this like, he just kept shocking me. And then the last thing I remember from that very first date was he was like, oh, I can't remember how it came up, maybe Fight Club, like we were talking about Fight Club or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, of course you find Brad Pitt attractive. And I was like, wow, a guy that doesn't feel threatened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it brought me back to a time with my ex-boyfriend where one of our biggest arguments was because I told him I liked Brad Pitt's abs. So you can imagine one of my biggest arguments that I have with an ex-boyfriend, as if like Brad Pitt's like a threat to him, right? It's like, it's like,
He's
I
on the
wish.
table.
It's an option.
It's between you or Brad Pitt.
Yeah. So you better like keep it up, mate. Yeah, none of that. So it was just like there was no threat there. He was like, well, of course you're a woman. You find other men attractive. I'm a guy. Of course I'm going to find other women attractive. But that has no correlation to who I end up with. And so
Right.
so that's why I say it ended up being like obviously the best night of my life because it was so refreshing to not pretend. And I started to let my guard down because he was so free to be who he was.
Yeah.
And it ended up being the best setup for our future because I knew exactly who he was. And he allowed me, who at 21 was so worried and insecure about how I looked, how I was showing up. I was like trying to eat delicately. I'm a freaking eater. I like stuff in my face with food.
Yeah.
But here I am trying to be a delicate eater because I thought that that's what guys liked.
Yeah.
And so, it was just so refreshing. And when I think about today's society with dating apps, I probably would have swiped him.
Sure.
Because of all the things I just said.
Yeah. Right.
Favorite restaurant, B, strip mall. And he listened to rock music and I freaking hated rock music. And so like all the things that I thought mattered in a relationship actually didn't. And what actually mattered is we had the same values.
Yeah.
We
wow.
talk about that a lot. I think we brought it up with a guest fairly recently that the dating apps, they really do limit you because you think that you can find the perfect person. You think you can look at someone's bio and find like check mark on everything that you like.
Right.
And then you meet them in person and nobody is going to be perfect. So then you end up dissatisfied. You toss that person to the side and you're like, well, there's a sea of thousands of other people that I can swipe through. So it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll find the perfect person. But that doesn't exist.
I also think too, hearing how you guys started and so young too at 21, like I don't know that I would have been ready for that too at 21. So like kudos to you too for being like
Knowing yourself.
yeah, or like giving it a chance because I think you write a lot about confidence and so something that I have realized in getting to know you and, watching your content and everything is like how long it took me to build up. I always considered myself a confident person, being an eldest daughter and just being used to bossing everybody around. But I didn't realize like how little I lacked. And I don't know if I would have had the confidence to meet a confident person like that young.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think the key though is that at the time, we just thought it was going to be a fling. So even on that first date, it was, I had to legally leave the country because my visa was running out, right? So I only had 4 weeks left in my visa. He had just got out of a relationship where the girl started being a bit too clingy. So he was like, oh, this is perfect. She has to legally leave the country. So both of us went literally into that date thinking like, this is going to be, at least for me, this is going to be a great little fling. When I go back to England, I've got this great story to tell my friends. And then when I'm in my 90s, I can tell my grandkids about the one time that I dated this hot American dude in the summer. So even after that first date, it was like we just connected. And I mean, like, and then, you know, we went to a movie screening because his friend had a movie. And so there was a couple of things that we then did after, but then we just hung out and like, then we went back to his place and he read me his poetry.
Wow.
And I was like,
oh my God, this is Chris.
That is so bold.
That is
a
Chris.
bold move to
That
read
is.
the
But
poetry.
the funny thing
it's
is-
confident.
Yeah.
It is, but you know when it's like it has to all be in context because it's not like he was just like, let me just on the first day, let me just read you my poetry. No.
It wasn't the Barbie
Yeah,
movie
yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like,
the Barbie
I want to push you. And you're like, oh God. Oh no.
And so it became this evolution of he's like, oh, I love writing. I was like, oh, what do you write? Right. So it just kind of came about.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, please read me something.
It's got to be natural.
Yeah, for sure.
It cannot be forced. Yeah, that's
No.
exactly right.
Yeah, it could not be forced. And so even after that, though, it was like, oh, so what are you doing tomorrow? I was like, oh, nothing. He's like, you want to hang out? I was like, sure. So every day, and I do think this is a key, there was zero expectation and zero pressure that this was going to be the one. Like there was nothing like that. Literally, it's like we got 4 weeks to hang out, have wild sex, and just enjoy each other.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after like the third week, the fourth week, we're like, we really gel. Like, like we have amazing conversations. The sex was amazing. The conversations were beautiful. The gentlemanness in him, the authenticity in him. And I'd never met a man like that ever in my life. And so it became like, oh my God, I'm about to leave. And that's when he was just like, I'm going to come visit you in London. And then within 2 weeks, he got himself a passport. He didn't even have a suitcase.
Oh, wow.
So he
Wow.
like borrowed his mum's pink suitcase.
Oh my God, that's the cutest thing ever.
Yeah.
So funny. That is cute.
So that's then became the trajectory, you know, how we ended up together in our relationship. But I do think it was the no pressure. I think it's when you put so much pressure on the first date that you've got so many preconceived notions about them being the one, but they love dogs. I love dogs. You know, that they, you know, like people look at people's profiles and I think that becomes sometimes a detriment because you have all these expectations. You have like, oh my God, we're going to have kids together. Look, he's holding a kid. It's like, you know, you've already projected what the next 20 years is going to look like.
Right.
But there was no projection for me or him. The projection was like, what are you doing tomorrow?
Yes. Yeah. So it allowed itself to kind of naturally.
Yeah, we're just going to have a good time. We're just going to roll with it, right? Because I think if you'd gone into that date being like, I am looking for a husband.
Oh, yeah.
I am trying to get somebody to put a ring on it right now. You might have just called it like when he came to pick you up, right? Because you're like, this isn't what I want for a husband. This isn't what I expect. This car, you know, all of those things, all those expectations that you would have had, you might have been like, you wouldn't have even given it a chance because you would have gone in with like, this isn't someone I want to marry.
100%. And even in the discussion that we had when we were at the restaurant, he was like, yeah, I don't know about marriage. I don't know. I've never really, no, I don't think
How
maybe
funny.
I won't. And so again, if you are the person that's like, I want to get married, I would have been like, oh, off. Nope.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when he finally proposed, he said, I realized I was either going to marry you or I was never going to get married.
Oh,
Well, there you go.
He's a
there
romantic
you
one.
go.
Yeah. That's funny.
So, like, confidence wise, you know, or the book Radical Confidence, we really want to empower people, teach them to be more confident. You started 21. How did that become your theme? Like, how did that become your mantra? How is that really kind of inspired you to take that on?
The radical confidence.
Yeah.
It really was over maybe the last 5 years where people are like, Lisa, you're so confident. Well, how do you think about this? And I'm like, who are they talking to? Because I still have a negative voice in my head that's always telling me I'm no good when I'm starting something new, that I'm going to fail and people are going to laugh at you. And so it surprised me that people saw me as being confident. And so I was like, what? And so I just paused and took time. Like, what is it that they see that they think that I'm confident? And what I realized is that I don't let my insecurities stop me. And that's what people perceive as confident. So then I started to really dive in and said, okay, I was very insecure when I was a kid. I've developed my confidence in multiple areas, but it's taken 20 years to do it. So how do you teach that? How do you even talk about it? And the thing that I really discovered is confidence is the byproduct of taking action. Confidence is the end result. And it's like going to a gym. It's like, I want muscle. Okay, well, if you want muscle, it won't surprise anyone to say you've got to be consistent. You have to watch what you eat. You have to go work out every day. And hey, not a surprise that if you take a year off, then your butt muscle's going to atrophy. That's exactly like confidence. If you don't practice it, if you don't keep refining it, if you don't keep pushing yourself, if you don't watch those moments when you're not confident and you tweak and you iterate, like, you won't get there. But if you keep doing it and you keep practicing, then eventually that will come as the result. And so when you become competent at something, that's when the confidence comes.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's it's really great to hear you say that, because I have told them, I've talked to other people about this, like, I've always considered myself to be a pretty confident person, even though like I am self-deprecating all the time in my head. Like there is that voice in my head, but I've always considered myself to be a pretty confident person. Post-lockdown, though, I feel like my confidence went way, way down. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to like atrophied. I don't know how to like walk into a room and be confident the way that I was before. And it's something that I'm very aware of, that like I need to get back. But that's so true, because it was a muscle that I was used to exercising all the time.
Oh yeah.
You know, we were going out all the time. I was meeting new people all the time. I was happy to meet new people and interact with new people all the time. Then there was so much fear around COVID and during lockdown about even being close to people and not knowing how to interact with people, that then it just totally threw me off my game in like, how do I even approach people or talk to people? And then we were inside for 2 years or whatever, and like not going out, not meeting new people, that I still feel like I don't have it back. Like I don't have my old self back, my self-confidence back.
I guess it's probably just like what you're saying about working out. It's like you have sat for 2 years. It's hard to get yourself back into the mental
Shape.
gym.
Yeah.
You know, like
you have to make a choice.
Yeah.
The same way you would whenever you're like, all right, it's time to start working out again.
Yeah.
Like it's time to start taking care of myself again.
Yeah.
And I think it is the same thing, but it is hard to do. It's hard to get like started.
The one thing that I would say to that is I wouldn't even position it to be, how do I get back to my old self? Now, because the great news is you're an evolution of that person. That person didn't have to go through COVID, but you have.
Yeah.
So I think we so focus on moments in our past that we try to get back to, but instead of seeing it as what's the new evolved you, what does your now, what does confidence look like to you now?
Yeah.
Now that you've been through that, how do you practice that? How do you grow there? And I think that allows you to be forward facing. Like I've heard this story about this person that was like rowing, and they were just they were like going towards rocks, and they're like, oh my God, I don't want to go towards the rocks, and they're rowing, they're trying to row away, and like their coach is like, well, no wonder you're rowing towards rocks, because you're looking at the freaking rocks. Stop looking at the rocks. Look at where you actually want to go, and your entire body, everything starts to shift. So if you're very much focusing on that past person, it's not a surprise that you don't feel like you're quote unquote there yet. Because you're trying to get back
backpedaling.
You're backpedaling, exactly. So again, even that is just a shift of mindset. Of like, oh, who do you want to be today? Who do you want to be tomorrow?
Oh my God, I could sit here for like 300 hours.
I know.
Just going through this conversation.
I'm tearing up right now. I'm like,
I love it.
I'm so moved.
I love it.
We had to get back then, though. You told us your worst date. You told us some of your red flags when you were dating. Do you have, so obviously you're not on the dating scene now, but I feel like everybody's got red flags. What are your red flags out there?
Deal breakers.
Deal breakers, just like.
So deal breakers on dates or in a relationship?
Ooh, either or.
And please or show your
both,
work.
yeah.
Okay.
Show your work. She's like, okay, A+.
Long
Yeah,
division.
I know. The pressure. So for me, knowing what my value system is and making sure that whoever I am with or whoever even if it's friends, if our value system align. And so when I say values, people I think confuse that with hobbies. Oh my God, they love golfing. I love golfing. They love hip hop. I love hip hop. Right? That isn't a value system. The value system is how are you going to bring up your children? What is religion important to you? if you had enough money, what does your life look like? So like even with me and Tom, with our value system, the fact that we align, once we sold Quest, we went straight back to work the next day. Why? Because our values are not built on money. Our values were built on actually creating impact. Now imagine one of us had the opposite. And like, I want to go vacation for the rest of my life. That's where your collisions come.
That's right.
So your value system is absolutely freaking imperative. And I would just say you need to know your value system before you even start dating. Because what happens is you get caught up in the chemicals, the love, the attraction, and you start to be like, oh, this doesn't really matter. Well, this doesn't really matter. And I think that's where so many, especially women, end up being in a relationship. If it ends up being toxic, now you have no idea who you are anymore.
That's right.
Because you've let go of all of your values. So as long as you know what your values are, when you go on dates like that, like if I went in on a date with my value system, which I didn't, but if I did, I would have known immediately me and Tom very much vibe, because our values about family are very important to us. Like our families are everything. So things like that are very important. Now the deal breakers to me, well, I was very clear. There were two things that from day one, I articulated to Tom, because again, I think people don't necessarily articulate their non-negotiables. And so for me, it was like, if you ever cheat on me, I will never forgive you. Now, here's the thing. Not everybody's like that. No judgment.
Truly.
Right?
But I knew I would never be able to get over it, because trust to me was so important.
That's right.
So when
it's not even about the physical act. It's the trust.
Yes,
You're absolutely right.
And so articulating that to him and saying, look, some people may forgive. I'm not that person. And so I want to set you up for success, because that's important. Right? Like set your partner up for success and let them know what your deal breakers are. So I said to him, if you cheat on me, I won't even let you explain. The second I know, I'm packing my bags, and 30 seconds later, I'm out the door. So number one. Number two, if you've ever physically harmed me, that's a deal breaker, because again, trust to me is so important, and being able to feel safe is one of my highest values.
Yes.
And so now if I don't feel safe around you, the second you ever, if you pushed me, if you hit me, like, and that was my ex-boyfriend was, verbally abusive. And there were a couple of times where he pushed me and I just didn't feel safe, but I was in that toxic dynamic with him.
Sure.
So I said, I will never do that again. And so I explained to him, I'll never do this again. And then how open do you want me to be about my third one?
Go for it.
Open
Go
as
for
you
it.
want to be.
All right.
Should I?
So-
You
can everything go on such an open book. Is that I never ever want to be disturbed in my sleep with sex.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that is a real trigger.
That is a trigger for me too.
Yeah.
Because I had an ex that would like
wake you
blame
up?
it. Well, it would blame it and be like, "Oh, I was doing it in my sleep or whatever." And it's like,
Shut up.
was.
You need to go see somebody about that then.
Yeah.
Like go to a sleep study if that's the case. If you can't help yourself in your sleep, I'm sorry.
Seriously.
BS.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
exactly. Total BS. And also, I am somebody like I don't love a lot of things, but in the small thing of things that I do cherish quite deeply, my sleep.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I
Right
swear
up there.
to God.
It's funny, like how certain people, like certain things, are like a real trigger to me. Like snoring, waking me up snoring. I'm kind of a light sleeper, and if I'm really bothered, I'll just go into
The couch,
the couch or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not as bothered by that, but that's a trust thing. To me, like you said,
Right.
waking me up in my sleep with something like that is so, I mean, like, I didn't
Well,
realize
it's
how
disrespectful.
triggering it was going to be for you to even say it.
It's
like,
disrespectful
no, I mean,
to do
not
that.
like, but I was just like, wow, it is disrespectful, but it is it's a trust thing. You're absolutely right. Like, I'm in my most vulnerable state.
Yeah,
Right.
And you are using something that is very much needs to have two people involved. And that, I don't know, like it's very.
Wait, so I guess I want clarity
Yeah.
on this. So when you say like they're waking you up for sex, in what way?
Like they're like penetrating.
No.
We don't
No,
do that. Yeah.
No, that's assault. Like
Yeah.
that is
'Cause
straight
you're
up
not
assault
mentally
to me.
like.
Yeah.
So now imagine.
But I don't even want you waking me up with the request. I'm asleep.
I don't want
Oh,
your hard
like-
dick on my back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just
Yeah.
rubbing it,
Yeah.
and you're waking, and
Oh,
you're,
yep.
oh,
Yep.
it's
Yep.
immediately turned off.
Oh,
So my
God.
ex-boyfriend used to do that, and I would say to him, "Please don't," and he kept doing it. So it got to a point, and because he was my first relationship, I started dating him when I was 15 years old. I was very insecure. I was teased and bullied, and so I put all of my value into him, and so I didn't understand or realize what across that line that really
It's a violation.
wasn't
And
it?
also, like, what a turn off that it's like, oh, okay, so like you would be okay with that, like an unenthusiastic, like,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
just not only turned off from the physical act right now, but I'm just so icked out by the dude. I'm just like, I don't know if I could have sex with you again.
For you to be penetrating me in my sleep, that is so. I mean, first of all, it's assault, like it's rape to
made my
me.
heart
Like I
race
didn't consent
in a way.
to this, but it's just a pure violation of my
even realize
personal
how-
autonomy and personal space.
Yeah.
Like, why would you think that that's okay? Like you must think that my body belongs to you if you
Right.
think that you can just use it however you want, whenever you want.
Well, you want to know something really crazy? Part of me was like, does my body belong to him at the time? And so really understanding how much I had the, preconceived notion of, well, you're dating.
Yeah.
You've slept with
Yeah.
him before. You've
Yeah.
slept with him many times before. So why is this any different? Like Lisa, he gets turned on by you. Not, you know, you couldn't find a boyfriend before. So there's all this
Wow.
that goes in with it. And so it wasn't until I started dating Tom that was my third non-negotiable.
That
I
is
was
hitting such a deep place for me.
Yeah.
I never really spoke
So
about it, to be honest,
relatable.
because I always.
It's very relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I thought, am I alone?
No.
No.
Nope.
And when you're navigating that journey, you are questioning yourself a lot because you don't know necessarily what that's supposed to look like. That personal, that private part
Right.
is supposed to look like, and how those private moments should look. And I as well, I am also guilty of allowing things to happen in my life that, I look back on and regret, and I think that maybe I took more ownership of than I
They
probably
did.
should have,
Yeah.
or they did.
Well,
And
there aren't a lot of safety nets
No.
for women either. I mean,
No.
there isn't a lot of guidelines. I mean, in the United States until like the 80s or 90s, marital rape in a lot of states was legal.
still legal. Yeah.
So I think the lines about our body autonomy as women, it was very blurry about. And
Get
there was
blurry
also
again.
Yeah, we didn't. It's not like we had sex ed really
Yeah.
in our
Oh, God,
schools
no,
growing
no.
up, and it's like I'm learning from like boomer parents who have more toxic traits than we have. So
Truly.
like,
Well,
if
and
we
if you're
enter
from-
into these adulthood
Yeah.
situations, you're just kind of left to try to navigate it
Yeah.
on our own. So hopefully, like people having more open conversations like this.
Yeah.
And-
I'm actually really glad that you brought it up.
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that, we do have a lot of younger listeners, a lot that are in their early 20s, and maybe this is like eye-opening for them, where they're like, oh, it isn't okay. I felt
And I'm
that
not
in my
alone.
heart.
Yeah.
I'm
just,
not alone.
Just
Yeah.
because you said yes last night doesn't mean you mean yes in the morning.
Yeah.
Like that, and you have a right to say no at any time. And as soon as that no is said, it should stop immediately.
I appreciate how much it's wild how much I'm relating to everything you say, because I had very similar, like you were saying about Tom, like you didn't know these things until you met Tom. I didn't know a lot of these things either until I met my husband. And I think that we, often are like, well, women should know their worth or whatever. And we're taught how to, be treated. And then it took a man who treated me so well and was like, I can't believe, what are you talking about? Of course I would never fucking do that. That's why would I do that? I mean, like I joked that like when I met my husband, he was more of a feminist than I was. And he was. I learned to like women because of my husband. It's such and I always was like, I'm a guy's girl. I have more guy friends. That's just who I am.
Girls are drama.
Girls are because that's what I was fed
Right.
through media, through all kinds
cool
of
girl.
things. Cool girl, pick me. We've all been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
The movies I always saw like the nighttime sex where they're like, and so I was like, this is supposed to be sexy, I think. And you have a preconceived notion or you've been taught something to your point.
Yeah. And it's not sexy. If you're not feeling it, it's not sexy.
Yeah, so when I told Tom, he's like, why would I ever do that? He was just like almost, and I was like, wow. All right, well, there you go.
Well, there you go.
Oh man, that's such a. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't expect that journey to happen, but I'm glad it did. And I think that you're absolutely right, Christina, when you say we do have a lot of young listeners who maybe are hearing this as well for the first time and going, huh.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the 5 years we've had this show, I don't think we've ever talked about that. And it is
That's
such a common
something.
And it is because we've talked about
Everything.
literally everything that you could think of to talk about. But and that is it's surprising that it's never come up because I mean we talk about sexual assaults on dates and in relationships often. But that is such a specific common thing that happens, especially in early relationships. That I don't know that we've ever brought up before.
Well, so taking it then, you commented earlier about dating apps, about how you probably might not have swiped on it. So do you think that there's anything good about dating apps? Or are you anti-dating app? Or, where does that land on you as somebody that luckily found their husband before their prevalence now?
To be honest, I'm so goal-oriented in everything that I do. So if you have anxiety and you aren't the person that likes to socialize much, then sure, an app is an amazing way to try and meet people. I think you just have to know that everything that you see, there's much more to the story to everybody that comes across your page. Now, for me personally, I feel chemistry when I'm in a room with somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know a chemistry by looking at someone's photo or by knowing, they like a dog, they like dogs, they want to get married and have 5 kids. It's like, okay, but do back to our values. And so the thing that I have been trying to get Tom to do for the longest time is I want to do dating app at Impact Theory, but I want it to be based on people with growth mindsets. Because when I think about, and I don't know, is that actually a box that you can check?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
No. Because you can do voice things on Hinge now, though. So there's that.
I'm good on that. I know.
Well, as long as they have that. Because I think anytime someone asks me, what's like the one thing? Most people, I used to say communication, but what I realized was I actually think it's growth mindset.
Yes.
And for people that may not know what a growth mindset is, it's are you willing to adapt? Who you are today does not dictate the person you are tomorrow. And so when you're with somebody, if you're looking to be with somebody forever, do they have the same mindset as you that you know that you're going to grow, evolve? And are you able to grow and evolve together? Are you able to communicate when your communication skills may not be great? Are you able to be honest with each other when you know that honesty may hurt the other person? That's what a growth mindset does, where as long as if you're on the same page and you say, okay, honesty, yes, even if you know you're going to hurt my feelings, I want you to be honest. Now imagine one person says that and the other person's like, what do you mean? You knew that was going to hurt my feelings. How could you say that? You can't have an accurate conversation,
right?
And then you can't communicate to then get to the other side.
Right.
So I really do think it all starts with having a growth mindset from the get-go. And so if the dating apps don't even have that, then I don't know how, again, relationships can ultimately work long term.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's, I think one of our earlier episodes, we talked about our own red flags. And for me, it's always been apathy. Like I am so turned off by that in a romantic partner, in a friendship, in the workplace. Like if you don't care, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just such an ick to me. I do believe that we're constantly growing and evolving. I'm not the same person I was pre-COVID. I'm definitely not the same person I was a decade ago.
No.
And I don't want the person that I'm with to be like that too. Even our own, like where we started 5 years ago, our friendship and everything and where it is now, everything should grow and evolve and change.
Well, and we check in with each other.
Yeah.
That's
that's the thing. Because it's like we do have a relationship. We have a throuple relationship.
Yes.
Very committed. And sometimes we clash and sometimes we have differences of opinion and stuff. And we have to do that kind of like check in. Where are we at? What are we feeling? Where do we want the podcast to go?
Sure.
Like, like I think if you want any successful long-term relationship, it's something that you have to be on the same page about.
sorry. We talked recently about growth in general and like growing with your partner. And it was something I funny enough, we just mentioned this, but we were talking about how like, when we were doing like all that couple stuff before you get married, the person we were talking to, it's like, you are going to grow. You're going to change. Hopefully you found somebody you can do that with, right? Because, our pastor, he was like, he was like, when I met my wife, I was a rocker. We were, in a band. And then I decided to become a preacher. Like, that's a big life.
Wow. A little bit of a
that's
switch.
A big change, So not everybody's going to be able to grow in the same trajectory. And, and that's, I think where even growth and communication are so,
they stayed together though, didn't they?
Interlinked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They stayed together. Yeah, because they were able to have that conversation because
that's exactly
the values remain the same.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So like when I married Tom, to your exact point, I told him that I wanted 4 children. And for 8 years, I actually was a stay-at-home wife. So we got married, we moved to America, and for 8 years, I was looking after him in the sense of I was cooking, I was cleaning, I was taking care of the household. And then he has a crazy idea to start a protein bar company called Quest Nutrition. And that when I started to help out, I actually, I found myself. Like I started to come alive. And it got to the point where I realized I no longer wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and I no longer wanted any children. So now imagine somebody who doesn't have a growth mindset, you can't navigate that. But what I did is I sat down with him and I said, babe, I love you more than life itself. You mean so much to me, but I actually hate cleaning for you. I hate cooking for you, and it's making me miserable. And his response was, what kind of husband would I be if I prioritized my clean clothes over your happiness?
There you go.
And so if you don't have a growth mindset, and so when people often say like, oh my God, you guys are so lucky. I'm like, no, a different husband would have left me for saying, hang on a minute, you promised you were going to have 4 children. Or a different wife wouldn't, when he came home saying, hey, I've got this crazy idea, I want to start a protein bar company. And by the way, the house that we just built or that we just bought, I want to put up for collateral, and work 120 hours in a week, like consistently. Most women may have left him. But I didn't. So it goes to why? Because we communicate, because we got a growth mindset, because we're never going to ask the other person to be somebody they're not.
That's exactly right.
And when I fell in love with him, I knew he was ambitious. And what a lot of people do is they may fall in love with oh my God, they drive a great car, they've got a great career. And I just interviewed a dating expert and she said, when you're picturing the person you want to be with, so people like, who do you want to be? I want to be with someone successful. What does that mean? I want to be with a lawyer or a doctor. Okay, great. Now actually think about what that doctor's lifestyle looks like. Because if it's a surgeon,
they're gone all the time, girl.
That's right.
They're getting woken up at 3 a.m. You're on, you're trying to go on vacation and all of a sudden someone has a heart attack or whatever it is. Is that a lifestyle you can live with? Because you paint a picture in your head about what you're looking for, but the reality sometimes doesn't compute with what you think the dream is. So with Tom, I knew I married an ambitious man. So the fact that he said, I want to put our house up for collateral, I could have taken that personally.
Sure.
But then I just realized a woman sees a house as a nest and a man sees a house as a nest egg. And so once I just kind of put like, he just sees this as a means to get what he wants to grow, to be more ambitious. I'm now doing a disservice and I'm going against what I promised when we got married to support him no matter what direction he wants to go in.
And also like you said, like one of the things that you like about him is his ambition. So I think cutting that off and then say he capitulated and was like, okay, then you wouldn't be attracted to him anymore because that's one of the qualities that you like about him. So, yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know Jay Shetty, but Jay Shetty is one of my good friends. And he said that you're actually there's 3 relationships when you're in a relationship. It's your relationship with your passion and mission, your partner's relationship with their passion and mission, and then your relationship together. But if you think that if you're trying to deter your partner from their passion and mission, so if it's ambition, right, what do they want to do? Now there's a fracture in the relationship that you guys have. And so encouraging each other to go for that mission, that purpose that you may have, and then also then coming together, because you can't have a beautiful relationship if you're unhappy.
That's right.
Yep.
And it takes two happy people to make a happy relationship. Not one happy person, And, we've had this conversation before. It's never going to be 50-50. Sometimes it's 70-30. Sometimes it's 80-20, whatever it looks like. But it does take two happy people, I could be at 20%. I'm tired. I'm beat, but I'm happy. Deep down, underneath all those layers of tired and just can't do it today, I'm a happy person because I also know that 80% pickup is happening and I don't have to even think twice about it, because it just is.
Sometimes though, I'm okay with not being happy. I think happy is people feel like there's a state that you have to always maintain. And I think of happy as being a beautiful pinnacle and sadness as being, the opposite. But it's in the sadness that makes you appreciate the happiness, and it's in the happiness that makes you realize, what it means to be sad.
Oh, so sometimes I freaking love being sad.
I give in. I lean into sadness often.
I was
put on that Lana Del Rey and just lay on the floor. Just tears.
Yes. Sometimes that feels good.
It does. It's cathartic. Yeah.
But I think of it as being like I'm content.
That's right.
I'm very content in the moment that I'm in. And so, I really feel you.
Oh, I just love this. I feel like we could keep going for hours and hours. And again, like they said, we're not an advice podcast, so it feels really good to actually have somebody
we're getting advice
listeners really useful things. So if you can tell people where they can find you so that they can go binge everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So if they like the advice side of things, I interview therapists, psychologists, dating experts, I interview single men. I actually love interviewing single men to hear how they think. You can go check out Women of Impact, so that's on YouTube, and then you can follow me at Lisa Bilyeu on all platforms.
Yay! Yeah. Well, next month we'll announce a guest. Well, and thank you so much for joining us for the double dates. And follow us. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and right here on YouTube at My Worst Date Podcast. And you can also go to our one-stop shop of a website. It's myworstdatepodcast.com. And we love you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.